Welcome to Beauty is Eternal. My name is Caitlin. I'm your host, and I have a very special guest today, Dr. Chris Callewaert. Hi, Chris.
Hello, hello, hi.
Hi. Thank you for joining me on the show. And part of what makes you such a special guest is that you have some amazing credentials. So, you're currently a researcher at the Faculty of Bioscience Engineering at Ghent University. You have two masters and a PhD, and you're hosted by Ghent University's the Center for Microbial Ecology and Technology in Belgium, where you currently are, and as
Yes.
well as at Night Lab in California at University of San Diego. And you've had papers published in a multitude of really important journals, just to mention a few: Experimental Dermatology, American Journal of Clinical Dermatology, BMC Biology, Plus One, and many, many more. So I just want to begin by asking you a question. What attracted you to study the skin microbiome and the armpit biology?
Thank you, and thank you for having me. You immediately bring on the question spot on. What attracted me to this field? Serendipity, I have to say. Just sheer luck has brought me into this field. It was one night with a girl. It was a fun night. Before that, I did not have any body odor at all. But after that night, my body odor completely changed. Suddenly, my armpits smelled sour, musty, unpleasant overall. I knew something had happened, but I couldn't pinpoint what. So I started frantically looking up what was going on, what could have happened. Looked up all the research papers on the armpit microbiome back in 2008. There was not a lot known on the microbiome. It was not yet a field yet. It was really microbiology back at that time. Um, but I knew at some point, yeah, I got those bacteria, and it made the bacteria. I made a mine on my skin. They joined my skin microbiome, and they didn't go away. No matter how many deodorants or soaps I used, they stayed there forever. So, well, my idea was if it's possible to pick up a bad bacterium, it is also possible to get rid of it, and to also, if it's possible to pick up a bad odor, it's also possible to pick up a good odor. So, with my investigations into the literature in mind, I went to a couple of professors. They all found it a good idea, and my idea was basically to transplant bacteria again. They all found it a good idea, and so I began my quest for a PhD. So I started in 2010, 2011 on a journey to investigate all about the underarm microbiome, clothing microbiome, how what bacteria are involved in body odor. I sampled over 1,000 armpits. I stuck my nose into multiple into 1,000 armpits, up to the point that I could identify bacteria based on the smell even. So I became quite an expert in underarm microbiology and odor, body odor generation, and thus I became Dr. Armpit. It was basically my colleagues who gave me that nickname. We were about in the lab with about 100 researchers in different fields, in wastewater treatment, in soil microbiology, in water, and even in space microbiology. And I was the only one working on skin and armpits, and so they just called me Dr. Armpit just to mock with me, but I basically the name says it all. So I quickly embraced it, and so I became Dr. Armpit. Yeah,
Well, it's a perfect nickname and explains very concisely what you're all about.
correct. Absolutely, I agree. Yeah, yeah.
So I can see that you noticed from this situation with the girl that your own body armpit odor changed. Why is this important? What's the big deal if your armpit odor is good or bad, or what's the important about having good bacteria there?
Yeah, that's a good point. We investigated that in the lab. So basically, about 250 people. We did basically a national call for people that have body odor. We want to investigate more about the topic. So about 250 people came to the lab with self-claimed underarm bad odor. We took swabs of their underarm microbiome. We analyzed the odor, but we also let them fill in a big questionnaire that investigated what they ate, what they drank, their lifestyle, their profession, and such, but also how they felt about having body odor. And we saw that it had a big psychological impact. Their quality of life was on average lower as compared to other individuals who were living in Western Europe that didn't have any body odor. So they were in general less happy with a variety of things. And there's such thing as cumulative life impairment. So it's just something you have. But some people really don't dare to go out anymore. They are socially isolated because of it. They don't dare to talk to colleagues, to friends, to in the professional environments. It's really hard to make contacts. They don't want to go too far from their home. They want to quickly change a shirt, or do a quick wash, or apply deodorant. It really puts constraints on them, and we saw that that impact was even higher with females than with males. So it really impacted their lives on a daily basis, even though it seems very trivial having body odor. It does have a big impact on their lives.
Well, now that you say it, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that can make you very self-conscious if you want to go out to a concert and you're like, oh, after 30 minutes, people are going to smell me and not want to stand close to me. So, yeah,
Exactly.
but
Yeah.
certainly. So, is there something people can do if they don't have good body odor or good armpit bacteria? How can you help them?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things, a couple of tips and tricks that I can give. One thing, a quick tip is basically wear cotton. Cotton t-shirts, cotton clothes is actually really good. It harbors and it can recultivate the good bacteria. It's mostly the good bacteria that can thrive in cotton shirts. While polyester and synthetic shirts are really bad for body odor generation. It's really the bad bacteria that can grow in there, and as such, you can have a very quick malodor if you wear polyester and synthetic clothes. Another tip that I can give is something you could do about is body mass index. If your body mass index is higher, then people tend to have more body odor and more of the bad smelling bacteria in their underarms. So you
Mhm.
could try to reduce your weight in general if you're a bit obese. Another surprising thing that we found is that people that eat more meat, people that eat more fast foods, and eat less vegetables, they also have a worse body odor, and they also have more of the corynebacteria, more of the bad smelling bacteria in their underarms. While people that consume more vegetables on a daily or a regular basis, they actually smell better. They smell better and they have less of the bad smelling bacteria in their underarms. So you are actually also, you smell how you eat. It's quite surprisingly, and also the microbiome adjusts to that. Yeah, your biological sex has to do with it as well. Females smell better than men, but then again, females have a higher psychological impact of body odor.
Mhm.
I would say, yeah, don't worry too much about it. You will always be the first one to smell your own body odor. Um, it's something of this world. Many people have it. There are worse things in life for sure, but we're working on solutions so that we can get rid of it because the regular deodorants and antiperspirants, they do not work at all. They're only a short-term solution. They're not a long-term solution at all. So we're developing yeah, sprays with bacteria, with the good bacteria inside, so that they can actually transplant good bacteria back in their underarms, so they can tackle the problem at the source.
What gives them the bad smelling bacteria in the first place?
Good point. And there's many things that could have happened. People say, well, it happened after giving birth to my child. It happened upon sleeping in another person's bed. It happened after taking medication. It happens after sleeping with a partner. It happens after stay in a hospital. It also happened by coincidence. Many times it happens with puberty. So basically, puberty hits and then body odor starts to arise. but there's many onsets that can happen, and there's not really one thing that really leads to it. The thing is, we all have about 100 different bacteria in our underarms, and some of those are also smelling bad. But it's all about the balance. And if that bad smelling bacteria are really suppressed, and if the good bacteria are really on the upper hand, then you will not smell at all. You will not smell the bad ones. But if at some point these bad smelling bacteria get the upper hand, then the underarms can start smelling sour or musty, and that's can also have to do with what you eat or having too much stress. Or yeah, also stress has an impact. The more stressed you are, the more food you give to the bacteria to generate body odor. So yeah, it's really a matter of coincidence. Really, you don't really have it in hands. But one thing that we know is that also antiperspirants, the large spread use of antiperspirant is also not helping it.
I have a question. What's the link between a bacteria smelling bad and it being unhealthy? Is that always the case?
It's not really the link between being unhealthy and smelling bad. We all have, to some extent, some bad smelling bacteria. It's all a matter of balance. It can be that a body odor could be an early warning signal for a disease that could be lurking in the body or could be coming out in some time. There are many diseases that are also linked with body odor. We're still a bit scratching the surface of this. My opinion is also that it could have to do with some underlying condition in the gut. It's something that is not going well. But it's really, yeah, I'm really guessing there. It really requires long-term studies to get to the bottom of this.
Well, good thing you're doing so much research.
Doing my best.
Now that you say that, our dog, we adopted a dog from an animal shelter, and he had really bad breath. So we took him to a veterinarian to have his teeth cleaned, and he had an infection here. So the bad breath that we were smelling was unhealthy bacteria that had infected his gums. So,
Yeah.
like you were saying, it was a warning signal. I mean, our dog doesn't have a girlfriend yet, but if he did, it might scare away potential girlfriends for him. Because the bacteria is kind of a warning that maybe something isn't so
Yeah.
healthy here.
Indeed. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's absolutely a fact. Also, halitosis, having a bad breath, with us humans, it's not usually to do with your mouth hygiene. It is usually to do with something in the gut. It could have to do with yeah. We have this sort of mucus layer in our gut, and if that mucus layer is very thin, then at some point bacteria can start leaching into the bloodstream, and that's bacteria can leach into the blood, and then that can go to the lungs, and then you can basically have a bad smell as a result. So yeah, everything starts with having a healthy gut. Um, there you have the most bacteria. Also in your mouth, you have a lot of bacteria for sure. But in an often case, the gut is really an important yeah onset.
Hmm. Well, despite what you're saying about how deodorant and antiperspirant is bad for you, I think for a lot of people, it's still difficult for them to come to terms with the idea that, hey, this is actually bad for me and I shouldn't wear it. What do you say to somebody who's like, oh my God, I can't live without deodorant? What's your advice to?
I know. I'm not saying that all deodorants and antiperspirants are bad. Well, I'm not saying that all deodorants are bad. Antiperspirants are good for those that have hyperhidrosis, that have really wet stains under the arms. For them, it's really the best solution, other than injecting Botox or something. So it's really the first line solution for people that have hyperhidrosis. But for most of us who do not have wet armpits, we do not need to use antiperspirants. But most of people actually don't really know the difference anymore between a deodorant and an antiperspirant. They see, okay, 24 hours protection, and they say, yeah, sounds good. That'll be good for me. You can really check on the packaging, on the ingredients, if one of the first five ingredients, if it contains aluminium, then it is really an antiperspirant, and then it's meant to stop the sweating. But the aluminium in our research and multiple researches, we saw that aluminium salts in deodorants and antiperspirants then have a really high impact on the microbiome. They shift the microbiome completely towards more smelly bacteria. Once you use it, it really decreases the bacterial loads to a very low point. So there would be no odor be produced because the bacteria are so low. But on average, we should have millions of bacteria in our armpits, and after a day or at night, they repopulate the underarm. Our underarms are meant to have a lot of bacteria there, and even if you use antiperspirants, they will come back. But after you use antiperspirants, what bacteria that will come back are not the ones you want. It's really the more stress tolerant, the biofilm forming bacteria, also potentially pathogenic bacteria, are the ones that have the upper hand that can really thrive in these stressful environments. So yeah, antiperspirants are meant to reuse every day, every day. You really become dependent on it until you reach a point like, I ran out or I don't want to use it anymore. And then it really starts to reek. And then you see what kind of microbiome you have. It's all messed up. So in general, use a deodorant. Your deodorant basically deodorizes the underarm. It does not contain aluminium salt. It will not block the sweat spores, so your skin can still freely breathe. You can still freely get rid of water there and moisture, which is a normal process that goes on in the underarm. And it only deodorizes the underarm, so that's a bit of a good scent. That impact on the microbiome is also much lower. So if you want to use something, use a regular deodorant, or even nowadays you can use a natural deodorant with more natural ingredients inside. And for people that really want to try, you can try to go off of it. Your first week you will smell bad, but after a couple of weeks it tends to get better. And hopefully you will have a microbiome that is stable and is not smelling standardly. I myself don't use any deodorants already for years, and I'm very happy with my microbiome. I don't smell anymore. I, it's my natural scent. It doesn't smell musty. It doesn't smell sour. It doesn't smell like fecal or anything. It smells good in general. I'm happy with it, and I don't want to mess up my microbiome like it once was. So I'm happy with it, and I don't want to mess it up anymore.
Would you say that using antiperspirant, because if I understood you correctly, antiperspirant gets rid of all the bacteria. Is that kind of like using an antibiotic? Instead of using it in your gut, you're using it in your armpit?
Something like that. It's really biological murder. Yeah, yeah. It's not like antibiotic, because an antibiotic is also like only like a selective amount of ingredients, and bacteria can create resistance against antibiotics. Yeah, and antibacterial ingredients such as aluminium. Bacteria can also start to become more resistant towards it, but they will not create resistance in general against aluminium salts because they don't have that built into their genome. So we don't need to be afraid of that, or not so much. Still, we see more stress tolerant and more resistant bacteria popping up, but hopefully they will not. In theory, they cannot develop any resistance into their genome against these metal salts.
Well, that's good news.
Yeah, yeah.
And what about shaving your armpits? Healthy, unhealthy, somewhere between?
We investigate that as well, and we only if you shave your armpits once, so from hair to no hair, then we see reduction in body odor. Um, but then if people do it on a daily basis, the reduction in body odor is gone again. So it's basically only an impact if you go from hair to no hair. Then that leads to temporary improvements. But if you do it on a daily basis, the impact is gone again. My my angle on it, my theory is that hairs can retain a bit the odors as well. Basically, underarms are meant to have a bit of a smell. It's a form of non-verbal communication between people, between partners. Animals still have that, still use that. We don't, in theory, we don't use that anymore, but it's still there. We can still smell it. We can still, we still have associations with it. It's not completely lost. So yeah, so shaving as such is not a bad thing. It basically also removes the hair and also removes a bit the upper surface layer of the skin. And that is also successful in removing a lot of odorants that are really sticky on the skin and on the hairs. So as such, you remove a lot of physically remove a lot of odorants, so that the odor will be less.
Okay, so shaving the armpit is okay, but not every day.
You can do it every day, but the impact from shaving every day, you will not, it will not lead to a continuously reduction in odor.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I want to go back to something you mentioned before, and this, or just now, is to do with partner selection and your armpit bacteria. Do you think that if somebody is wearing deodorant and they stop, that different types of people will be attracted to them? Or if you stop wearing deodorant or start using it, can it change who you're attracted to?
They actually done a study on that, and absolutely, they were let people, men and women, wear T-shirts, and for a night they brought their T-shirts in, and then people were should rate those different T-shirts and should say, okay, I feel most attracted to this or to that or that T-shirt, and they found that people are attracted the most to a genetic background of that person that wore it that is most different to yours. So there is some sort of scientific explanation that in partner choice we still use that, and unconsciously it still has an impact on your selection of partner. We tend to select a partner that smells most different than from us, and that also in theory has a completely different genomic background as well, which creates an offspring which will not have any deficiencies in theory or yeah can will not lead to any malformations in the baby or something.
Well, it's really amazing how much we can detect through smell.
Absolutely, it's the most uncharacterized sense of the human body. We have lasers that can be used as eyes. We can detect all kinds of things, but a machine that can completely mimic the human nose, it still has to be invented. There are machines that can pick up things and they can try to identify all the different things. But then again, it cannot say whether something smells good or bad. So yeah, it's the human nose is still the most unraveled sense of the human body.
Well, you're in the right field.
Yep,
Most of the land in the world has been explored, or a large part of it, but you have like your own continent to explore.
absolutely, yeah, and I love it.
I'm curious about. So you say that your microbiome, your armpit microbiome, will naturally improve if you stop wearing antiperspirants. After a week or so. What happens if that's not the case? Is there a way you can take probiotics to supplement your armpit the way that many people take probiotics to supplement their stomach bacteria?
Yeah, good point. And in theory, yes, but it's not available yet. But that's what we're working on. So during my PhD and in my postdoc, we were doing a lot of trials with people. First, we did transplantations of bacteria from one person to the other. It was usually the mom, the dad, the brother, or sister. We selected that person. We characterized her under our microbiome. We said, okay, this is a good microbiome with good bacteria, doesn't smell. Let's put that as fresh as possible on the washed armpit of the person that suffers from it. That led to improvements. We could really shift the microbiome up to 1 month, even more, 2 months. It could lead to significant improvement in body odor. But after a couple of months, it could swirl back again to the original situation. So we were still a bit hungry for longer results. That's why we were able to put the bacteria into spray formulation. So people could basically do that transplantation on a daily basis. We could characterize the bacteria, make them shelf, turn them into a powder, put them into a spray, and then we've done a clinical trial on about 67 people, and that led to a massive improvements we saw. I remember one person, he came to the office. I had a bad feeling about this guy because he was there with his dad. He said the dad said, "You come on, you need to try this." It was basically a bit forced by his parents. So I thought, okay, he's maybe not going to be compliant and not use it every day. But he used it, and his body odor changed from very bad, very musty, very fecal-like, very sour, to even an underarm odor that was smelling pleasant. It was really smelling nice, even. Yeah, his body odor completely changed. His clothes smell better. The people that he interacted with, they all noticed it. There was a huge improvement, and also other people, they also saw huge improvements. One person better than the other, but we were in all cases we were able to shift the microbiome towards a better equilibrium, and we were able to eliminate a bunch of malodor associated bacteria that were also staying away after the use of 1 month.
Wow.
So we're working on that, still doing some iterations and improvements, but hopefully it will be available next year, so people can actually buy it, and they can also experiment with that for themselves.
So you mean they don't have to go to their friends or partner who has good armpit bacteria and ask if they can rub their
Yeah.
armpit? That's good. That's
There's
good.
many people that try that as well. Many people reached out like, "How do you do it in practice? Can you help me?" The thing is, yeah, it needs some, yeah, needs a lot of organization, and ideally there's some doctor with it that can help with it. But people have tried it, and they have gotten some to some extent success with it. But now with the good bacteria into a flask, that's really a much more convenient solution than trying to rub somebody's arms, others bacteria in their arms.
Well, because then that person also has the danger they might get the bad armpit bacteria. So,
Also, yeah,
so this way it's
absolutely,
win-win.
yeah, indeed.
Well, some of the people from this study, if it's the one I was looking at on your website, are pretty brave. They had their full name there listed. I was like, wow, that takes guts to agree to have your full name published with whether or not your armpit bacteria is good or bad. So, credit to
Mm-hmm.
them.
People are looking for solutions. Yeah, I want to help them as much as possible. But in the meantime, I also try to do research. So now we're really focusing on getting that solution out there, so they don't longer have to, ask for my permission or something or my help. They can really try it at home for themselves. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that cotton clothing is the best clothing to wear for armpit bacteria health. On your website, I was reading, you also talk about the chemicals that are in a lot of clothing and products, PEGs and antifungals. I think I didn't know until recently that a lot of clothing is just sprayed in antifungals generally before they sell it in stores. How much do you think that these chemicals that they're using that many of us are buying, how much do you think this plays a role in our skin microbiome?
Yeah, so there's two things. I think you read about the study of use of underarm cosmetics and cosmetics in general on the skin, and they can linger for a long time on the skin, and they can also have an impact on the microbiome. And then another thing is clothing, which is, yeah, we can buy at store, is actually treated not necessarily with antifungals, but really treated chemically. They're dyed, they're colored, they're then treated afterwards. So they still contain a lot of stuff on the textiles that we should not get in touch with too much with our skin. It's also the industry. The industry is running on a tight budget. Everything needs to be cheap. Everything is done outsourced in low income countries, namely Cambodia, Southeast Asia. It's a bit part of the industry, yeah. But yeah, at some point we will come to the realization, okay, our clothes have a big impact on our skin microbiome, skin health in general, and that is important too. We should work with textiles, with clothes that are, that can protect us, that can have a good impact on us. and not full of chemicals and dyes and things that are very unsustainable that leach into the environment as well. So that's really important, and we're also having a big research line on this, creating more sustainable textiles, working with more renewable things on textiles, reusing that, and also incorporating the good bacteria into textiles so that we can wear them longer. We don't have to wash them as frequently, and it would not smell after an hour of wearing, for instance.
How can you incorporate good bacteria into clothing?
That's a good question, and we've been working on that for years now. Not easy, but it's possible. So you can actually there's a way to attach the bacteria by padding or by dyeing a bit or by well, there's a whole number of ways to how you can attach bacteria. You can do it in liquid form or powder form, but you can attach them in a way that they are not all released after you wear them or after you wash them. So we're really working on a way to sustainably release those bacteria over time. And say they would basically with friction they would basically break open them and then release a low amount of those bacteria, so they're having a good impact on our skin and on our odor generation. Not easy, but it's definitely possible, and we're now almost on a comfortable level that we could say, okay, it can those bacteria can live on the shirt for the lifetime of the shirt as well. Minimum 20 or maybe 30 wash, wear, and dry cycles, which is on average the average lifetime of a shirt.
That's really cool.
I know it already exists for mattresses. They created mattresses. They called it the yogurt mattress, so to say. And they incorporate bacteria in there, which will protect against the house dust mite, because there's a lot of bacteria which are allergic to house dust mites. And incorporating those good bacteria inside the mattress, and over time, if you lay on it or um, those capsules will break open and then will release over time the bacteria. And these bacteria are really efficient in killing the house dust mites and or preventing them from inhabiting and housing in those textiles in the mattress. So it's a bit, the idea comes a bit from there. It's a similar concept, but with different bacteria and for a different purpose.
Huh. Well, that's really convenient.
Yep.
And in apart from mattresses and washing your clothing, what have you noticed in terms of families sharing bacteria? They obviously share a washing machine, maybe they share a mattress.
Yeah, family members share about everything with each other. So yeah, there's a lot of sharing going on in washing machines, but also in human contact. They saw even in sports derbies. If it's a contact sport, you also share a lot of bacteria with each other. But living in the same house, if you just walk barefoot on the floor, you can be sure that you will share bacteria through the floor as well. Um, yeah, human contact with each other, floors, tabletops, mattresses, clothes, the clothes that are laundered in the washing machine. The same laundry machine is used, same dryer is used. There's so much contact points possible. There's also multiple studies shown that family members share bacteria with each other, not just with each other, but also with their pets. So if you have a cat or dog in the house, you will also share bacteria with them. You will share your bacteria with your partner and your pets, but your pet will also share their bacteria with us. They run outside, they bring bacteria in, and then those bacteria we pet the cat or dog, and then we have those bacteria on our hands. We touch our face, our arms, etc. So we will share bacteria eventually with our pets as well, which is a good thing, by the way. It leads to an increase in skin bacterial diversity, and
Hmm.
on general, that's a good thing. So
Okay,
we've
good to
lost a
know.
bit.
I was a little worried there.
Yeah, we lost a bit the contact with nature and having a pet in the house. that pet brings nature back inside. So it runs outside and then it brings nature back into our homes. And that we've lost a lot in the course of about 100 years, 150 years. Before the Second World War, before the First World War, we had much more contact with nature. We didn't have isolated homes as we have now. Um, yeah, people were living a lot on farms, close contact with animals or with the soil. The impact of wearing shoes for a lot of research on the indigenous populations in the Tanzania, the Hadza, in South Venezuela and northern Brazil, the Yanomami, and even in Peru, the Amerindians of Peru have done a lot of investigations of their skin microbiome, and their skin microbiome is super diverse. They have much more diversity than us. Their microbiome is much less stress tolerant. A lot more benign bacteria, even probiotic bacteria, while we have more stress tolerant bacteria on our skin. And that's because they have a lot of contact with nature. So they live in close contact with nature. They walk barefoot or maybe flip flops. The impact of wearing shoes has an immense impact on the foot microbiome. We lose a lot of diversity with wearing shoes, and that can then lead again to smelly feet. Some people suffer from smelly feet. Other people don't. It's really hard to get rid of once you have it, but it's also a matter of having the right or the wrong bacteria there.
What kind of footwear do you personally wear or recommend?
I fortunately do not have any smelly feet, but I used to have a girlfriend, and she used to have smelly feet. And then after a while, walking in my house and where I also walked, she got rid of her smelly feet. So she picked up the bacteria from my feet, I guess, and then she got rid of smelly feet. So it's really a way of exchanging bacteria and as well getting rid of malodors then. Yeah, I mean, if you have no smelly feet, don't try anything antibacterial there. We did a study on that in California, and we investigated the impact of an anti-odor foot powder on a dozen people, on 12 people, and one person who used to have smelly feet but didn't have smelly foot anymore. That person used anti-odor foot powder, and after that experiment, he picked up that bad smell again on his feet. So can be as easy as trying to kill the bacteria, and then one bacterium gets the upper hand, and that leads to smelly odors again. So it's really if you do biological murder, it's really an experiment. We do it on a daily basis, but without knowing, and it can have consequences. Yeah,
It can turn into a vicious cycle.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, one thing I have learned about the beauty and health industry, a lot of companies don't really want to solve your problems. It's not really in their interest. It's better to have a subscriber than a one time purchase. So, if they can do something that temporarily helps your problem, but meanwhile actually makes it worse, then they'll make you dependent on their product and they can ensure that you buy their product once a month for years rather than just buy it once. What do you think about this, and how does this affect how you run your company?
Yeah, well, the industry indeed is aided if there's a recurrent buy. Absolutely, that is the case with medicine. That's the case with cosmetics. I I I tend to see the good thing in it. People or industries didn't really know about the microbiome until 10 years ago. So they did it because it helped. It helped on the short term, and as such, it's a solution, right? They didn't know the long term consequence of it. So if you don't know, you don't know. Huh? Now we know better, and more research is trickling through, and now we understand the microbiome better. We know the importance of it. We see the importance of it. It helps us protect against diseases. It helps us to protect against bad smells. And now there are certain products that start to sprout up that contain ingredients that will help the microbiome. That will be prebiotics or even probiotics or postbiotics, things that we can actually aid the skin microbiome instead of killing it all. I wouldn't see it in such a bad way. It's really a matter of the world constantly evolves. We constantly learn new things, and yeah, peop a lot of people are still helped with conventional deodorants or antiperspirants. But in my opinion, it's time for an improvement, for an upgrade, and time to come. Yeah, that all of us have knowledge about what we're doing on a daily basis, and that it shouldn't have consequences.
Well, it sounds like the probiotic armpit care that you're developing, that once people change their bacteria to the better bacteria, it's self propagating in a lot of cases, right? They won't need to keep using it, it will kind of take hold.
Yeah. Yes, for most people, it can happen that it comes back. Bacteria is also present in the deeper layers. Stress, or if you produce more apocrine sweat, it can lead to more food for the bad bacteria, and then they can come back over time. So it's also a lot of environmental factors that have a role in that. But indeed, what we see is that people say, okay, in the beginning we will use it on a daily basis, then afterwards a couple times per week, then maybe once per week, then a couple times per month. So it can really help in establishing better microbiome there, and yeah, help tackle the problem from at the root, and so they wouldn't have that problem anymore. Yeah,
Really
it's really a
resolve the
sustainable
issue.
solution. Yeah,
Well, that's important to try and get to the root of the issue rather than just coat the issue.
yeah,
I have
well
a
said.
question for you. So I stopped using deodorant about 10 years ago. So we met through my friend Maria. She said, you have to talk to Chris because I told her I don't really wear deodorant. And
Nice.
yeah, so, and my husband can verify I very rarely smell bad, only if I haven't showered in too long or if I'm wearing, bad material or something. But what I do sometimes is I mix together coconut oil and baking soda. Is this an okay thing to do? Am I still doing the same thing where I'm limiting the all the bacteria, or is this an okay alternative? Because if I'm going somewhere important, I don't want to take a risk.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, baking soda is really conventional. Do it yourself, do it at home, do it yourself solution. A lot of people try it. Baking soda really helps in eliminating odors. It really cuts the odors and kills them at the source. So baking, but it can be for some people irritating. It can really lead to a red rash in your underarms. So for some people, it really has an irritating effect on the skin. And coconut oil is in itself is also a little bit antibacterial. It contains mid-chain fatty acids, which is very natural and which will also inhibit and kill bacteria to some extent. Not completely killing bacteria, but really sustaining at a certain level. Yeah, the lauric acid, the myristic acid in coconut oil, which is much higher in concentration than, for instance, in olive oil. It has a really very well, a very proper antibacterial effect, which will also lower the bacterial load there. So these two things combined, it gives a good feeling on the skin. It smells good as well. Together with the baking soda, which quenches the odor molecules, which breaks it open. It's a convenient solution. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. I would like to know more about your personal skin and armpit care routine,
Okay.
if you're comfortable
Yeah, absolutely.
sharing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's almost inexistent. I don't really use anything actually. Yeah, I would only smell even with certain shirts.
Mhm.
Some old shirt or something or synthetic shirt that could sometimes smell. Um, but I have studied my own underarm microbiome. I studied when it was smelly. I knew there were a lot of cyanobacteria there. And then after 2 to 3 years, it shifted completely. Now I know what kind of microbiome I have. It's a good microbiome. It's well balanced. No longer the smelly bacteria present there, and I like to keep it that way. Don't want to play with it anymore, so I don't use any deodorants. Any it's for sure not an antiperspirant. I have used a couple of times my underarm spray, um, so I know the impact, and it's a good impact. And in all honesty, I also don't use soap or shower gels. Also no shampoo. I also stopped that a couple of years before Corona. There was a colleague who tipped me and said, "Yeah, I don't use any soaps or shower gel or shampoo anymore." And I said, "Well, your hair looks fantastic. How do you do that?" And well, the impact was okay. The first week was really hard. It was a bit greasy, but now my hair is, yeah, this is fine. It's not like your typical Head and Shoulders feeling afterwards, but it's really soft. It feels well. It don't have any flaking as well. Yeah, I'm really happy with it. So I don't use anything in the underarms really, and very seldomly only a shirt would smell if I would sweat a lot. But in general, yeah, no. Very happy with it and like to keep it like that.
Do you use any body lotions or skin lotions on your face or hands or anything?
No, I've had a bit of acne on my face. I've used a couple of products in the past for that, but I have shifted my diet also during Corona, and that has had a great impact on less amount of acne. So I don't use anything on my face either, just plain water basically. Yeah, I'm basically I'm a farmer's son. I used to live on the farm. It was greenhouses. Um, Live with the chickens, with between the crops. Was growing flowers and plants and whatnot. I like nature and I like anything natural. I don't like anything that is foreign to my skin. In my opinion, you don't need anything on your skin. Basically, the lipids that you produce on your skin are also help to preserve your skin, and it makes your skin appear young and vital and natural. So removing those skin lipids, that's the thing that we do. We basically use shower gels, shampoos. We remove all the lipids, and then we try to smother it up with other lipids again, which are not natural, which are basically comes from a plant or from a cow. Um, it's not the same consistent. It's not the same ingredients as it should be from your own natural skin. So basically, I would say preserve what you produce yourself instead of putting something artificial there. Yeah.
Well, let's say somebody is inspired and they would like to reduce the amount of products that they're using, or they want to stop everything. How long would it take between them saying, okay, no more antiperspirant, deodorant, skin lotion, shampoo, foot lotion, whatever, before their natural their skin would come into balance like yours is?
It will not be as easy as from today to tomorrow, and there's many impacts. It's what you eat as well. Um, Stress has a big impact. So, but I think an easy one to do is really to try to look at your underarm cosmetic. Does it contain aluminium salts? Question yourself, do I need that? Am I really sweaty in the underarms? If I'm not sweaty, then basically put that away and use a regular deodorant. And if you're brave enough, cut it for a week if you can work from home. uh, See what it gives. In theory, the theory is for a week or a week and a half, it will smell not good. You will have a lot of bacteria there, but after a week or a couple of weeks, it stabilizes, and hopefully you have the good bacteria there, or the good bacteria can get the upper hands over the bad bacteria, and you wouldn't have a body odor. It's something you can experiment at home. No guarantee on success, but it's definitely worth a try. And then if you can cut loose from any underarm product, that would be already grade eight. Your underarms should have a lot of bacteria. We've always had throughout history of mankind for 100,000 years. We had hair there, we had a lot of moisture there, we had a lot of sweat there. So that's perfect breeding ground for a lot of bacteria. So it's normal to have a little bit of a scent there. Your partner can be attracted to it. So yeah, if you're brave enough, test it and see what it gives.
Well,
Yeah.
one great thing about your plan is you save money.
Also, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
So you can invest it in a nice organic cotton clothing.
Yes. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's something that my girlfriend tries to. My fiance is using is a mask on her face. It's something temporary, or even there's like also a mask in your underarms that you can try. Basically, it extracts a lot of bad things, and then you're left with your natural skin, and then that has a good impact on you. Can have good impact on your face, but also in your underarms. If you remove a lot of those molecules, bad molecules, artificial and odorous molecules, then basically you can remove it all together with that mask, and then you can live free again.
Where do I get this mask?
God, there's many masks. Then you can search for them online. Even a facial mask would do the job in your underarm, I think. Yeah.
Huh. Well, you were talking about the link between diet and your biome, microbiome. What do you recommend people eat or not eat? What do you yourself eat or not eat? Out of curiosity.
Um, yeah. Try not to eat too much meat. Many patients that come to me that suffer from body odor, they say, "Okay, I live a hasty life. I have stress. Things need to go fast. I quickly grab for fast food. I stop by the McDonald's, or fast food is on the menu on a weekly basis. It needs to go fast, 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 and that's not good. Take your time and investigate the ingredients that you eat, and you can try for every meal that you have what kind of impact it has. Basically, after a meal of a lot of meat, it could happen that okay, you can have more underarm malodor then. Um, Investigate that with yourself. Does it have an impact? Maybe meat does not have an impact on you, huh? But I, for myself, I have went for a while without meat. Now I mainly eat chicken. Um, that's the main uh, protein. That's the main animal-based protein that I eat. I don't eat beef anymore because I've noticed that I react bad on it on beef. Even pork sometimes, but not too much. Only seldomly. And I'm really well off with the vegan diet. I'm not living completely vegan, but yeah. One thing I notice is the black spots under my eyes are decreasing a lot when I don't eat meat. So it creates you have a lot of iron coming in, and it deposits in your eyes. So now I think they should look pretty okay. Overall, I felt better as well in a vegan or a vegetarian lifestyle. So that's what I advise to people that have body odor. Try to cut down on the meat. Eat it much less frequently. You don't have to go vegan or vegetarian. Just lower, not 2 times a day. Try once a day or a couple of times per week and see what it gives. And that usually leads to an improvement in body odor. Also, a lot of vegetables, of course, are important. Yeah, there's many ingredients that you can test with. I also try to avoid gluten because I know it has a bad impact on me. I get acne from it. Yeah.
So, how many days a week is it ideal to eat meat, or how many do you eat meat?
For me, I can actually have chicken every day. I've noticed, but a couple of times per week. Maybe I have it every day, but probably I have it 4 times a week. I also like to have a meal with tofu or something like that. But again, it's not, and I'm not here to advocate for a vegetarian lifestyle. It's just something that you need to experiment with for yourself. I'm sure there's people that can have meat on a daily basis. But yeah, for sure, I think red meat. They've done a study. They've put 12 men on a diet of daily red meat, and then they put another 12 men on a diet of vegetarian diets. And then they collected their t-shirts after 12 after a couple of weeks, and that was rated by another panel, and they noticed that the men that were put on a vegetarian diet smelled significantly better, less intense, and less bad, less more nice as compared to the men that would put on a diet of daily red meat. So in that little experiments, they could already see that red meat has a direct impact on body odor generation. They didn't measure any bacteria, but they saw, okay, red meat has an impact on odor generation in the underarms. So yeah, and also in our experiments on the 250 people that came to the lab, we clearly saw significant patterns. The more meat you eat, the worse the body odor gets, and the more malodor-associated bacteria you have in the underarms. The reverse is true for vegetables. So the more, if you eat the vegetables on a daily basis, then your underarm odor is better and your bacteria is better.
That's very, very interesting because you know exactly what correlates with an improvement or a worsening of the microbiome. What about dairy?
Dairy, it's some people are lactose intolerant, other people are not. Europeans, in fact, it's quite interesting that we eat so much dairy, and we are not as we are have quite well adapted to our nutrition with dairy, which is quite curious in itself because in other parts of the world they do not eat dairy, and they're having a bad time digesting dairy or lactose in general in the gut. So probably in our Western world, we have a lot of bacteria in our gut that can really convert lactose. So yeah, it's really the microbiome which picks up that lost function that we probably don't have in our own human genome. Yeah, some people can have it, other people don't. I, for myself, I also tend to avoid it. Maybe hard cheeses are fine, but I've noticed that yeah, dairy and definitely skimmed milk, it gives me a lot of acne, so I avoid that.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah,
But it's great that you're able to see all the links between diet and health and clothing and, you know, the direct effects are what you study. Because a lot of
mm,
people aren't aware on a day to day basis. They might notice, oh, I have acne, but I don't know why.
mhm.
Or I smell worse now, but I don't know why. So it's great you're
Yeah.
able to connect all the dots.
Indeed, indeed. It's still a bit of a black box here, but after a while you try to see the patterns, and there's definitely a clear cut relationship with the gut, with what you eat.
One thing I've noticed from what you've been saying is that people in the past, they were actually healthier than us in some ways, 100 or 200 years ago.
Yeah, they've done a study on the Tsimane forager horticultures in Bolivia. This is an indigenous tribe which lives, yeah, a native tribe that really lives in no close contact with nature, and they do not have any atherosclerosis. They have the lowest amounts of cardiovascular diseases in the world as measured today. Us Western people, we have a high chance of dying of a stroke or having a stroke in general. Um, so these people do not have any issues with cardiovascular diseases. They've also studied the Hadza in Tanzania and Africa and compared them with Polish people, and they're among the most happy people in the world. They're much more happy than Polish people. So living in close contact with nature, living, yeah, and they work a lot. They have their daily stress as well. They they need to work every day to get their food and survive. So they do work a lot. They have a lot of workouts, but they're among the happy. They're most happy in the world. Yeah.
Well, it's amazing that you're doing all this research only to go back to the past with a lot of it, to what people knew before or experienced.
Yeah, in my opinion, they really hold a clue of how people should live, or how we used to live. It's only in the last 100 years that it like, really completely shifted. Yeah, it's also we also have a good life. And, don't want to mention. I do want to mention that we have a very good life. We have the most. We have a good health system. We can find new solutions against problems. But there's also clues that are things that are lost, that are still present with the indigenous tribes. And those things I want to study. I want to learn them and find solution for us and our health. Yeah.
Well, so in addition to studying the secrets that some tribes still have that a lot of people have lost now about health and the body and nature, what else does the future hold for you?
I want to continue investigating healthy skin, diseased skin. We're planning a trip to the jungle in South America next year. We want to study them. We want to also study what the impact their microbiome on the immune system, uh, their skin microbiome. I want to study much more and see how we can use that information for our benefits. Um, so yeah, hopefully I will become a professor and continue that research path and find new solutions for existing problems here in our Western world.
I have my fingers crossed for you. A quick question. You're going to be in the jungle. The sun is very strong there. I'm guessing you're not a huge fan of sunblock. How are you going to keep from burning? What are you going to do to protect your skin, if
I
anything?
will use sunblock though. I will definitely
Okay.
use sunblock. But we'll go in September, and it's there's also a lot of shade from the trees, of course. It's there's a wet season there. There's a dry season there. We'll go somewhere in between of that. I will bring sunblock. I don't want to yeah, jeopardize my skin for in the long run. Um, yeah, I don't use it that much. It tends to be I tend to have to use it after winter. Then it's really prone to burning. But after summer, like now, I don't really need to use it anymore because my skin has adjusted at some point. But I will definitely use it there because yeah, also DEET, having a product against mosquitoes will be important. I don't want to pick up any vector, any
Mm.
mosquito-borne virus, and bring it home with me.
No, that wouldn't be a great ending to your trip.
Indeed, indeed.
So, Chris, where should listeners and viewers go to learn more about you? Where can they follow you? Where can they see your research?
I have a website, drarmpit.com, and I'm also active on Twitter and on Instagram. I like to give tips and tricks there. And my handle is at Dr. Armpit.
Very convenient, very easy to remember, very catchy. Well, I really enjoyed this time speaking to you. I've learned so much in this hour. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.